You know what? I think Daniel and I should just get divorced. Michelle's words floated above the rooftop crowd like smoke, slow to settle but impossible to ignore. At first, people laughed because they thought they were supposed to. She grinned wide, clinking her glass with Tracy and Lauren, who erupted into high-pitched giggles like backup dancers in a scene they'd rehearsed. I didn't laugh. I was holding a glass of club soda near the bar, a birthday balloon string looped loosely around my wrist, half listening to a conversation about real estate. And then those words landed like a slap. The rooftop was packed, golden Austin lights spilling across the skyline, music low and stylish. Her party, her rules. She turned toward me now, eyes glittering. Don't you think, babe? She added, as if my name was some prop she could toss into the bit. I mean, come on. We barely talk unless it's about bills or laundry. The laughter faded faster this time. People turned. I stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. Not angry, not confused, just clear. Okay, I said, voice calm. Then I'll get the papers ready. Everything stopped. Her smile faltered. Tracy's mouth dropped open. A guy from her office nearly choked on his drink. Even the Bluetooth speaker seemed to lose volume. Michelle blinked like she was adjusting to sudden light. Oh, come on, Daniel, she said, laughing again, but forced this time. It was a joke. Lighten up. Was it? I asked. She gave a breathy scoff. Yes. God, you're so, she paused. Calculating. Then, so uptight sometimes. Maybe that's part of the problem. And publicly humiliating your husband at your birthday party? That's your version of fixing things? Now the silence was absolute. You could hear someone's wine glass clink softly as they set it down. Michelle's face tightened. You really want to do this here? You already did, I replied. I'm just matching your energy. I watched her shift, eyes darting for backup, but even Tracy and Lauren weren't smiling now. Just stiff, awkward poses, unsure if they were still supposed to be laughing. This is classic you, Michelle snapped. Always needing to be the victim. Can't take a joke, can't roll with anything. God forbid someone points out we've been dead in the water for months. Then why stay? I asked. She stared at me, lips parted. No answer. Exactly, I said. You don't want out. You just wanted a reaction. An audience. I could feel the weight of the crowd now. All eyes locked on us. Some horrified, some riveted. I should have cared more, maybe. But right then, I didn't. I felt clean. Michelle stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough for the edge to cut deep. You're boring, Daniel. You think being dependable makes you a man? No, it makes you a placeholder. I wanted to feel something. Tonight. For once. I nodded, jaw tight. Well, congratulations. You felt it. She didn't reply. I turned away, toward the exit, then paused. Oh, and don't worry. You'll have those papers before the weekend. And with that, I walked off the rooftop. Her voice chased after me, shrill now, cracking in places. You're such a coward. Running away like you always do. I didn't turn back. Not this time. Because I wasn't running. I was starting. The party didn't end, exactly. It just sagged under the weight of what had happened. People went back to sipping drinks and pretending they hadn't witnessed a public fracture. But the energy had changed. The rooftop felt colder, tighter. Every laugh was shorter. Every glance flicked sideways to check on me. I stayed. Not because I wanted to, but because I refused to leave like some wounded husband licking his pride in the parking lot. I stood by the bar, watching the city lights shimmer off the Colorado River, pretending the burning in my chest was just heartburn. That's when I heard Marcus behind me. You good? He didn't mean it as a platitude. Marcus knew me too well for that. I turned. He handed me a neat bourbon. I didn't ask how he knew I'd need it. She really said that, he added low, in front of everyone. I took a sip. You heard it. He shook his head. Damn. I mean, that was cold, man. Ice cold. You handled it like a Navy SEAL. I laughed just a little. Felt more like a drowning man. We stood in silence for a moment, the bass from the speakers pulsing faintly behind us. Michelle was across the rooftop now, locked in some frantic whisper with Tracy and Lauren, probably spinning damage control. Listen, Marcus said after a moment. If you're serious about the papers, I know a guy. Real deal. Divorce work, not the cheesy billboard kind. Sharp as hell. I looked over at him. Marcus never offered things lightly. His tone wasn't casual. This was support, not suggestion. You think I should do it? I asked. He didn't flinch. I think if I'd just been humiliated like that by someone I sleep next to every night, I'd do more than talk to a lawyer. I turned back to the city. The lights blurred for a second, either from the wind, or the whiskey, or the clarity clawing its way in. I'm not hurt, I said quietly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. I'm not, I repeated. Not the way she wants me to be. I'm awake. Like I just realized I've been standing under fluorescent lights for 6 years, and someone finally turned them off. He studied me, then nodded slowly. You're saying she's done this before? No, I said. Not like this. But the signs were there. Little things. Disrespect in small doses. Jokes that weren't jokes. This, I gestured behind me, toward the echo of laughter that was already trying to erase what she'd said. This was just the first time she said the quiet part out loud. Marcus sipped his drink. So what are you going to do? I'm going to teach her something, I said. He waited. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to grovel. I'm not even going to argue. Another sip. I'm going to give her exactly what she asked for, only not in the way she imagined. A smirk tugged at Marcus's mouth. Cole. No, I said, setting my glass down. Clean. We stood there for a moment longer. Then Marcus clapped a hand on my shoulder. When you're ready, I'll put you in touch with that lawyer. I nodded. Tomorrow. His eyebrows rose. That's soon. I want her to know I meant it. As I walked to the elevator, I didn't look back at Michelle. I didn't need to. The real punishment wasn't shouting or spectacle. It was knowing that for the first time, I wasn't reacting, I was deciding. The next morning, the kitchen looked exactly the same. Same gray quartz countertops. Same stainless steel espresso machine Michelle never used. The same row of unused cookbooks collecting dust on the floating shelf. But the silence between us? That was new. She stood at the sink in one of my old t-shirts, one she used to wear when things were good between us. A peace offering in cotton. I didn't comment. I was pouring coffee into a travel mug when she finally said it. So last night. She said it carefully, like stepping around a broken glass she wasn't sure I'd noticed. I didn't look up, just capped the mug and took a slow sip. I assume you were just blowing off steam, she continued, her voice lighter now, trying on old tones that once worked. I know I crossed a line, and it came out wrong, but I figured I already started the paperwork, I said flatly. She blinked. What? I turned to face her, leaning gently against the counter. You asked for a divorce. I'm giving it to you. She let out a small, awkward laugh. Daniel, come on. That was just me being dramatic. You know how I get. Yeah, I said. I do. She didn't like my tone. It wasn't cruel, but it was certain. No argument to debate. No opening to spin. She walked around the island, trying to meet my eye. You can't be serious. I met with a lawyer this morning, I said. Marcus gave me the referral. I signed the engagement letter. They'll send you the documents by the end of the week. Michelle opened her mouth, closed it. The color drained slightly from her face. This is ridiculous, she said at last. You're going to throw away 6 years over a joke? I held her gaze. You didn't sound like you were joking. She looked away. I set the mug down, speaking more softly now. But even if you were, it's not about the words, Michelle. It's the comfort you had saying them. The way you smiled after. The way your friends laughed like they'd heard it before. Her expression twisted. That's not fair. You're overreacting. No, I said. I'm finally reacting appropriately. She crossed her arms. So what? You're just going to end it? No fight? No trying to work it out? Was there something to work out? I asked. Because I stood there while you publicly dismantled our marriage for entertainment, and now I'm the one who's not fighting? The silence between us turned thicker than steam. Her voice softened, like she thought she could still reach me. Daniel, I didn't mean it like that. My friends, they always tease about relationships. It's just how we talk. You know that. No, I said. I know how you talk, and I know what you just showed me. She looked at me again, harder this time, testing me, searching for weakness. You're really doing this, she said. I already have, I replied. What happens next is up to you. For a moment, I saw it, the flicker of panic. The realization that the man she thought would never leave was already out the door emotionally, and all that was left was paperwork. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I just picked up my keys and my bag. She stayed rooted to the floor, and I walked out, the morning sun bright and calm outside. The thing is, sometimes the scariest thing in a fight isn't yelling. It's when the other person goes completely still, because that's when you realize they've stopped fighting for you. That afternoon, I found myself walking the gravel path along Lady Bird Lake. the skyline stretching soft and distant across the water. No earbuds. No phone. Just the steady sound of my own steps and the occasional skull slicing through the glassy surface out in the distance. It had been years since I walked here alone. Michelle always found it too humid, too slow. "Why don't we just drive somewhere with air conditioning?" she used to say. Back then, I'd laugh. I let a lot slide. But this morning, for the first time in a long time, my thoughts weren't spinning. They were sharp, focused, clear. Her joke at the party. I kept replaying it, not because of the words, but the ease with which she said them. The performance. The smile that followed. The way she turned me into a punchline like I was a fixture, part of the decor, not a person. I realized something on that walk. That wasn't a one-time outburst. That was who she'd always been beneath the curated Instagram couple shots and matching holiday pajamas. She'd never respected me. That truth didn't burn, it froze. I remembered every moment she interrupted me mid-story, every time she rolled her eyes when I brought up something from work, every time she retold arguments to her friends with me as the punchline. And I remembered how I let it happen. Not because I was weak, but because I thought love meant patience, endurance, grace under pressure. But what I called grace was really just neglecting myself. A jogger passed me, and I stepped aside, watching as they disappeared down the curve of the trail. My own reflection rippled slightly in the lake beside me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. Not really. It was about dignity. About no longer being the man who smiles through someone else's cruelty just to keep the peace. By the time I circled back toward the city, the weight in my chest had shifted. Still there, but now it had shape. Purpose. I headed straight to the law office Marcus had mentioned. It was in a refurbished bungalow near Barton Springs, clean and minimalist, with a wide oak desk and quiet jazz humming from somewhere in the corner. The lawyer's name was Rebecca Kim. Sharp eyes. No wasted words. We sat down in her office, and after the brief formalities, she asked plainly, "Are you sure this is the road you want to take?" I didn't flinch. "Yes. Just to be clear," she said, "this could burn the last threads of goodwill you might have left. Sometimes, people want justice, but what they need is distance." I looked her straight in the eye. "There's no goodwill left to burn." She already lit the match. Rebecca nodded. No sermon. No pity. She slid the intake form toward me, her voice steady. "Then let's get to work." Exactly 1 week after the rooftop party, I came home from work like it was any other Thursday. Except this time, I had a manila envelope tucked under my arm, and the quietest kind of finality sitting in my chest. Michelle was curled up on the couch in the living room, scrolling through her phone, a glass of white wine on the coffee table beside her. The TV was playing something mindless in the background, some dating show where everyone talked like they were auditioning for attention. She didn't look up when I walked in. Not at first. I stood there for a beat, watching her. The way she casually flipped through her phone, legs stretched out like everything was normal. Like we hadn't torn something fundamental wide open just 7 days ago. Then I stepped forward and placed the envelope on the coffee table, right next to her wine. Her eyes flicked toward it. Then to me. "What's that?" she asked, already frowning. "Divorce paperwork," I said evenly. "It's all there. Division's fair. 50-50. She stared at the envelope like it might catch fire. "Wait, what?" "It's what you wanted, right?" I said, my voice calm. "You said it in front of 30 people. Figured I'd save you the trouble." The silence that followed was thick with disbelief. She sat up straighter now, the phone forgotten on the cushion beside her. I didn't mean it like that," she stammered. "It was a joke. Everyone knew that. I was just trying to be funny." "You were laughing," I replied. "They weren't." Her hands moved to her lap, fidgeting. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "I was drinking. Tracy and Lauren were egging me on. I was just trying to, I don't know, lighten the mood." I nodded. "You succeeded. Everyone left the party with something to talk about." She flinched at that. "Daniel," she said, her voice lowering, almost pleading now. "This is insane. You can't be serious." "I am," I said. "I've never been clearer." Her expression shifted fast, panic giving way to anger. "So you're just going to throw everything away because of one dumb night?" "No," I said, leaning against the edge of the armchair. "I'm ending something that was already gone. That night just made it public." She stood now, the wine glass clinking as she bumped the table. "You think you're so above it all, don't you?" "Just cool," collected Daniel. playing the victim while I get painted as the monster. I'm not painting anything, I said. I'm just done pretending this is still working. The mask cracked again. She shook her head, pacing now, eyes wide. This is insane, she said again. You really think you're going to walk out of this clean? You think people are going to take your side? I gave her a soft shrug. I'm not asking them to. She stopped, arms crossed tightly across her chest. And what? You're going to be the bigger man. Just fade off into the sunset like some calm, enlightened ex-husband? I'm going to be someone who finally respected himself enough to leave. That shut her up. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I could see her working through the panic, the disbelief, the slow realization that I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't trying to guilt her or punish her or even win. I was just done. She looked at the envelope again, like it was a bomb she hadn't expected to go off. This doesn't feel real, she whispered. We used to love each other. I still believe that, I said quietly. But love isn't supposed to humiliate you. Michelle sat back down slowly, hands shaking just a little as she reached for the envelope. She didn't open it. I didn't expect her to. I won't chase you, she said after a long pause. I nodded. I know. And with that, I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stood by the window as the sun set over Austin. Behind me, the only sound was the soft rustle of paper. She was finally opening the envelope. But my heart wasn't in that room anymore. It hadn't been for a while. The knock came mid-morning. I was sitting on the front porch with a mug of black coffee, the kind of quiet morning that made me feel like the world had finally slowed down enough to breathe again. The breeze carried a whisper of cedar and sunscreen, and for once, the silence felt earned. When I opened the door, it was Tracy and Lauren. Of course it was. Both of them standing there in matching athleisure, oversized sunglasses, and smiles too wide to be real. The kind of smiles that come with damage control baked in. Hey, Tracy said, drawing the word out like a sitcom character. Mind if we chat for a second? Lauren chimed in. We were just in the area and thought maybe we should clear the air. I stepped aside but didn't invite them in. Instead, I walked back to the porch and sat down, gesturing toward the railing like they could stand there if they wanted. They hesitated, then followed. Tracy leaned on the post. So look, about Michelle's party. Things got kind of out of hand. Kind of, I asked, raising an eyebrow. Lauren gave a nervous laugh. I mean, it was supposed to be funny. Just a bit of wild humor. Michelle's way of, playing things up. You know how she is. Sure, I said, sipping my coffee. I know exactly how she is. That threw them for a beat. Then Tracy pushed ahead. We're not here to defend what she said. It wasn't ideal. But honestly, we were all drinking, and it sort of spiraled. She didn't mean it literally. She said it twice, I said calmly. Once as a joke, and again when she thought the laughter made it safe. Tracy shifted uncomfortably. We just don't want you to think that was the full picture. You and Michelle and I cut in, are over. The full picture developed. I'm just adjusting the frame. Lauren stepped forward slightly, trying to soften the edge. Look, Daniel. Michelle's been really upset. She feels like you blindsided her with the divorce papers. Maybe there's still a way to walk this back. Walk back what? I asked. The part where she mocked our marriage in front of everyone, or the part where I finally had the self-respect to believe her. They both stood still, smiles frozen. Tracy finally dropped hers altogether. You're seriously going through with it? I looked at her, then at Lauren, and said, here's what I understand now. You three make a great group. For parties, gossip, and low-stakes drama. But for marriage? For respect? Not so much. Lauren's expression cracked. Excuse me. I shrugged. No offense. I just finally see why all three of you are still single. It landed harder than I thought it would. Lauren's lips pressed tight. Tracy's eyes narrowed. Wow, she muttered. Guess we were wrong about you being the nice one. I'm not being mean, I said. I'm being honest. Try it sometime. They turned without another word, heels clicking down the porch steps. As the screen door creaked shut behind me, I sat back in my chair, lifted the coffee to my lips, and let the silence wrap around me again. That silence used to feel like a threat. Now it felt like peace. It started small. A vague Instagram story from Lauren, a pink background, sparkly font, and the words some men just can't handle strong women faced with tears of joy #blesseshirt. Nothing tagged, nothing direct, but clear enough to anyone who'd been at that rooftop party. Then Tracy followed. A meme with a crying emoji and the caption, "Imagine filing for divorce over a joke nail polish." Michelle didn't post anything right away, but a few days later, she uploaded a photo of herself at brunch, mimosas, glossy lips, the caption reading, "Free feels good. Some things are better left behind." For a moment, I felt the heat rising in my chest. That old pull to respond, to defend, to correct the record. But I didn't. I just watched. And then something strange happened. The comments started rolling in, and they weren't on their side. "Wait, is this about your husband? Didn't you make fun of him at your own birthday? Girl, maybe sit this one out. Yikes, not a good look. He seemed like a good guy." And beneath Michelle's post, "You publicly humiliate someone and then act like you're the empowered one? No thanks." He dodged a bullet. It snowballed from there. Screenshots from people who had been at the party started circulating. Someone uploaded a blurry video of the moment she made the divorce comment. It caught my voice clearly. "Okay then, I'll get the papers ready." Apparently, people liked that line. Someone even turned it into a TikTok sound. I didn't post anything. I didn't like the comments or correct the narratives. I just watched the tide turn all on its own. Michelle's friends tried to push back. Tracy posted a long story calling people keyboard cowards, while Lauren tried to pivot into victimhood, claiming they were being bullied for having a personality. But it was too late. The internet had decided, and this time, they weren't on Michelle's side. That should have felt like justice. But the attention didn't stop there. Mutual friends started messaging me privately, some with sympathy, some asking questions, some just curious about the drama. One even called me up late at night and said, "Dude, are you seeing this? You're basically a local legend now." I didn't want that. I didn't want to be a meme, or a story, or a point of discussion in someone else's group chat. I just wanted to move on. But the thing about public fallout is, you don't get to choose where the pieces land. Michelle's circle started shrinking fast. People unfollowed. One of her coworkers even reposted the video with the caption, "This is why I keep my relationships off social media." Suddenly, it wasn't just about us anymore. It was a spotlight neither of us asked for. And while I stayed silent, no quotes, no interviews, no clever replies, I realized something deeper than vindication. Michelle hadn't just lost control of me. She'd lost control of the narrative. And for someone like her, that was the sharpest cut of all. The invitation came as a text. Short, direct, no frills. "Private mixer Friday night. You're on the list. Would love to see you." Sienna, I hadn't spoken to Sienna in over a year. She and Michelle used to be close, until one too many passive-aggressive group chats finally pushed her away. Michelle always said Sienna was jealous, or dramatic, or one brunch away from burning her whole life down. But I remembered Sienna as sharp, grounded, honest in ways that Michelle hated. So I went. Friday evening, the city was buzzing. Heat clung to the buildings, that late summer humidity that makes you feel like you're stepping into something. The venue was sleek, one of those rooftop lounges that made you feel cooler just walking through the door. Black marble bar. Soft jazz remixed into down-tempo beats. Everyone dressed like they had something to prove, but somehow I didn't feel out of place. Not tonight. As I stepped onto the rooftop, Sienna spotted me from across the room. She smiled, a real one. No tight-lipped, check your status kind of greeting. Just warmth. "Daniel," she said, hugging me lightly. "Glad you came. I wasn't sure I'd be welcome." "You kidding? After this week, you're the most respected man in this zip code." I gave a small laugh. "That's ironic." She led me toward a circle of people I half recognized from local panels, startups, nonprofits. Everyone was kind, curious. No one brought up Michelle, at least not directly. One man leaned in and said, "You handled that situation with real class. Most guys would have lost it." Another woman added, "It's rare to see someone walk away with that kind of dignity." I didn't know what to say, so I nodded, smiled, let the praise pass through me like wind. About an hour in, I stepped away from the group, taking a glass of something citrusy to the far end of the balcony. That's when I saw them. Michelle, Tracy, Lauren, standing just outside the velvet rope at the ground floor entrance. They weren't on the list. I watched as Michelle argued with the host, waving her phone like it proved something. Her dress was stunning, probably expensive, probably chosen to send a message. But it didn't matter. The host stayed calm, shook his head, eventually turned away. Michelle stood there for a while, arms crossed, visibly fuming. Tracy checked her reflection in a window, trying to act unfazed. Lauren was already pulling out her phone, probably crafting a post about exclusion culture or some nonsense. From my perch above, I felt nothing. Not triumph, not spite, just confirmation. This was the other side of the rope, and I didn't need to say a word. Back inside, the evening continued. I spoke with a woman who ran a creative fund, swapped design ideas with a young architect, laughed more than I had in months. No one asked me to explain myself. No one treated me like a cautionary tale. I wasn't the guy whose wife made him a meme. I was just Daniel. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. I should have left earlier. The party was winding down, the rooftop lit in soft amber tones, and the warm buzz of conversation hummed around me. I had one last drink in hand, a sparkling cider someone insisted I try, and was mid-laugh with a couple from Dallas when I saw them. Michelle, Tracy, Lauren. This time, they were inside. Somehow, they'd gotten past the host. Probably name-dropped their way through or guilt some junior staffer at the elevator. Either way, there they were, storm clouds and designer heels, scanning the crowd like sharks in silk. I watched them from across the room. Michelle's expression locked on me the moment she saw me, somewhere between outrage and desperation. Her friends flanked her like emotional bodyguards, their fake smiles twitching under the surface. I turned back toward the couple I was talking to, but the vibe had shifted. I could feel the tension like static in my bones. Then came the voice. "Wow," Michelle called out, loud enough to quiet the music around us. "I guess this is where you come to hide now." People turned. I didn't respond. Just sipped my drink. She closed the distance fast, Tracy and Lauren trailing her like loyal chaos. "You ignore my texts. You hand me divorce papers. And then you show up here like nothing happened?" She hissed, voice sharp but cracking. Sienna appeared beside me, cool and composed. "They weren't invited." "I'm not here for you," Michelle snapped. "I'm here to get answers." "Maybe not the place," I said evenly. "You already chose the stage once. It didn't end well." Michelle's eyes flared. "You made me look like a monster." "No," I said. "You did that all by yourself." And that's when it started. Tracy stepped in. "You know what's pathetic? Acting like you're some kind of saint. You were just too boring to keep her attention. That's the truth." Lauren, behind her, added, "Seriously, Daniel. You act all dignified now, but you weren't perfect. You never saw how unhappy she was." Michelle didn't stop them. She just let it ride. So I turned to walk away. That's when Lauren shouted it. "Why don't you just admit it, Michelle? You cheated. That's why you said it at the party. You were trying to get ahead of it." Silence. The kind that punches the air out of a room. Michelle whipped around. "Lauren, shut up." But it was too late. Sienna's face hardened. People nearby stopped pretending they weren't listening. "Wait. What?" someone whispered. I turned back, slow and steady. "You cheated?" I asked Michelle, my voice low. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes darted between Lauren and me, furious and frightened. "I didn't," she started, but the words got caught. "It wasn't. We were in a rough place." I took a slow breath, letting the air settle in my lungs. "Was that before or after you turned our marriage into a stand-up routine?" Michelle stepped toward me. "Daniel, please. I didn't mean for it to go that far." "Which part?" I asked. "The affair, or the part where you tried to humiliate me before I could find out?" Tracy crossed her arms, but said nothing. Lauren suddenly looked like she wanted to disappear through the floor. The music was still playing, but the room had frozen. Michelle's voice broke. I didn't know how to fix it. Everything felt numb. "You wanted out," I said. "So you lit a fire and hoped I'd run." I stepped back, setting down the empty glass on a nearby table. "Here's the part you never understood, Michelle," I said, my voice calm, but final. "You didn't need to break me to leave. But now you don't get to walk away clean." I turned and walked toward the elevator, never once looking back. Behind me, the arguing began again. Tracy yelling at Lauren, Michelle trying to contain it all. Blame ping-ponging between them like it could undo the truth. But none of it mattered anymore. Because when someone shows you how little they respect you, the worst thing you can do is stay long enough to prove them right. The courtroom wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No last-minute confessions. No slamming of gavels like in the movies. It was just quiet. Civil. Predictable. Michelle sat 2 chairs away, her lawyer whispering occasionally, her eyes refusing to meet mine. She wore a muted navy dress and a face I barely recognized, tired, smaller somehow. The fire she'd once carried into every room was now a flicker behind glass. She signed the final documents with a trembling hand. I signed mine with a steady one. 50-50, just like I said. Fair. That word mattered to me more than I expected. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just balance. After everything, that felt like enough. Outside the courthouse, Marcus was waiting with 2 coffees. You good? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. We walked in silence for a bit, sipping. The city buzzed around us, unaware that something had just ended in that quiet building behind me. But not everyone was unaware. Over the next few days, messages trickled in. Some from my friends, others from people I barely knew, acquaintances, co-workers, even one of Michelle's former bridesmaids. You handled that like a king. We all saw what you did. You didn't deserve that. You were the only grown-up in the room. Praise is a strange thing. It felt hollow at first. Then slowly, it turned warm. Not because I needed to be told I was right, but because I needed to know I hadn't imagined the wrong. Meanwhile, Michelle's world shrank by the day. Tracy and Lauren stopped tagging her in anything. Mutual friends quietly dropped her from group chats. People who once flocked to her parties started ghosting her events. She tried to post a few things, cryptic quotes, pretty selfies, 1 or 2 fresh start captions, but the engagement never returned to what it used to be. The algorithm knew what the people did. The story had shifted. She was no longer the star. I passed her once, weeks later, in the parking lot of a grocery store. She was getting into her car alone. No makeup, hair tied back. She looked over as I walked by. I nodded. She didn't. And that was it. No confrontation. No second round. Just silence. That night, I came home to the same couch where she'd once laughed with her friends, where she'd once dismissed me with practiced sarcasm. The cushions still held her shape, but the energy was different now. It was mine. I sat with a glass of water, no TV, no noise, no scrolling. Just the quiet hum of peace settling in. People always expect the ending of something to be loud, explosive, cinematic. But the real endings? They come quietly, when there's nothing left to fight for, when the silence finally feels like home. I didn't pack much. Just a duffel bag, a cooler with water and a few sandwiches, and a playlist I hadn't touched since the early days of our marriage, back when road trips meant possibility instead of escape. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just got in the car one Friday morning and drove southwest, past the sprawl of Austin, past the hills and towns that blurred together like half-formed memories. The kind of drive where the horizon pulls you further than any destination ever could. By sundown, I was halfway through New Mexico. The sky stretched wide, so wide it made every problem I ever had seem laughably small. And under that sky, for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged to myself again. No noise. No posts. No carefully curated life to manage. Just me. And silence. Funny thing about silence, it used to scare me. I used to think if things got too quiet, I'd have to face the truth of who I was. But now I knew that silence wasn't the absence of love. It was the aftermath of chaos finally giving you room to breathe. I stayed in small towns, ate alone at diners with cracked leather booths, watched strangers laugh over pancakes, and remember what real joy sounded like. No angles, no games, just people being people. And somewhere along Highway 191, just outside of Clifton, I pulled over at a scenic overlook. It was just rocks and sky, but it felt like a cathedral. I stood there for a long time, letting the wind press against my chest, eyes closed. I thought about Michelle, not with anger, not with bitterness, just a strange, distant acceptance. She didn't destroy me. She revealed me. Her betrayal carved out the last of who I wasn't, so I could finally become who I needed to be. Not bitter, not broken, just done. And that was enough. I thought about the man who stood silent at the rooftop party while people laughed at his life. Then I thought about the man standing here, with dust on his boots and peace in his bones. Same guy, completely different story. I got back in the car and kept driving. No map, no timeline, just forward. People always ask what justice looks like in situations like mine. Some imagine courtroom speeches, public apologies, or perfect karma landing like a cinematic twist. But the real justice? It's not loud. It's not posted. It's not something you throw in anyone's face. Real justice is walking away so silently, so completely that they finally hear the echo of their own choices. It's not revenge. It's resolution. It's living well, not to prove a point, but because you finally stopped carrying ones that weren't yours to hold. Somewhere outside of Bisbee, I pulled over again, just as the sun dipped low behind the desert ridge. And I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because I was free.